Hi everyone, Kristen here. Welcome to the very first episode of Oh Snap. Today, I sat down with 3 of our veteran teachers talking about the Level 2 PPT, Family and Home. Let's go check it out.
I've been with VIPKid almost 3 years now, which is crazy. I can't believe it. Something fun, think I've taught in over 15 countries now with VIPKid, which has been awesome. I've been able to travel all over the world with me, my teddy bear, and my hula hoops. I love to hula hoop, actually.
Hello, my name is Kimberly, and I've been with VIPKid for almost 2 years, so not quite 3, but I'm on my way. And I guess something fun about me, well, I've been living in Mexico for almost 8 years now, so sometimes I consider myself more Mexican than, well, Canadian. And I speak Spanish a little bit more easily than I speak English sometimes, and I love animals, so I'm really involved with just helping street dogs, and I have 3 dogs myself and a cat, and so it's a big part of my life.
Teacher Mary, and I've been with VIPKid for almost 2 years. And something fun about myself is I was a foster parent for 20 years, so I actually have 10 children, 2 biologically, and 8 became forever family through foster care. So
I'm very diverse with my rewards. I don't have any on hand right now, but basically because when I teach this level, it's a lot of students that I've had for previous lessons. So a lot of the rewards I do are just very student dependent based on what they've shown interest in previously or not. But yeah, I tend to do my own rewards, and it can be anything from drawing, like building a picture, because some of them really get a kick out of trying to guess what it is by the end of class. So we build a picture together, or even just like more of a game board type thing. I have one that's kind of out of reach right now, but yeah, it's just really diverse. I don't really have a specific one for this lesson.
To mix it up, so I do different ones. I have a lot of regulars, so I like to keep it interesting for them. This one's been real popular lately. With the younger kids, this is nice because they're, you're teaching them the names of the animals as well. This is one of the ones that's in that group, the Facebook videos and props group, that you can print out. And this one, I'm getting ready for Jack Ma to do the teams. And like they have the pizza, the emoji pizzas, that's really popular. And they have cookies, and they have hamburgers. And I organize them in Ziploc baggies so that I can easily grab whatever. Like I could even give them a choice if I know they're a kid that just likes these particular rewards, and they'll pick and they love that. So, and some of them, my regulars, they like know what I have, so they'll just say, I want this one, I want that one. So that's kind of fun too.
Okay, so that's good. So what I'm hearing is Kim and Mary, you guys have set regulars a lot. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So do you guys have any tips for a new teacher that doesn't have regulars yet? Like what kind of rewards would be helpful for them to get started?
I think rewards that are easy to understand, especially like if it's a student that's new to VIPKid. So I tend to do just like the basic ones, some of the ones that even VIPKid recommends. Like I'll start with the tooth one a lot of times if I don't know the student, because it's kind of generic. I can make funny faces as I'm doing it. I can review colors by having them choose the colors of their teeth with different markers that I show them. And so it just gives me a better sense about the student. It kind of gives me a gauge on how much goofy do they like, and I can adjust it accordingly as I go. So I usually start with something really simple like that, and then just extend as I see possible, basically.
Cool. Definitely. So I've been on the road. I think I've taught from like 15 different countries at VIPKid. I've been all over. So my load is very light. I'm constantly on the move, and I really like to utilize my iPad as much as possible. I use it as if it's like 4 different apps. And especially I teach this level, I'm certified for all levels, but I'm mostly teach, I would say, level 2. And so this family and home I've taught 1,000 times over. And I've always found like a balloon system to work. And like you had mentioned, kind of I can extend it by having the student choose the color. So I kind of show like my thing, and I'm like, what color do you like? And then if the student doesn't know, I'll go over kind of the basic colors or have them say yes or no, if I can extend on it. If not, I'll just kind of go in rainbow order and kind of mix it up and have them repeat back the colors as well.
I like that.
Just a funny thing that always happens to me on this slide, because as I try to go through the little poem, and when I get to the line, but who is this one? And the students always try to guess. So I don't know.
Like guess how. So like you have them
like I'll say this
them?
is my sister, because I don't actually have finger puppets. So I'll just I'll do it. This is my sister and this is the baby. But who is this one? And the students always like, Dad, Mom. And they always start trying to guess who it is. So they actually try to answer the question. It's great to get an idea of what they know, what they don't know, but it adds a little bit of,
that's a good idea. Okay.
like, just fun things to it.
Mary, what do you got?
Well, with the class that I reviewed for this one, I found that this little boy, he had very minimal language skills. So we were doing a lot of parroting. I was saying the sentence and pointing it out and then having him say it. And I was also holding up these to help him know who I was talking about. So that really seemed to help him a lot.
I love TPR. I use it all the time. I also love to use the actual PowerPoint. I know I love to draw and scribble and write and reference things. So by actually circling, I don't have pictures of like the family, but I'll actually circle it because you have the little picture of the grandpa, the grandma. And just like I think Kimberly said, or Mary said, it is a lot of just parroting at this level because it is very beginner and they can't read these sentences yet on their own. So also, if it's a student I've had maybe before, and I know that they know maybe some people in the family, I'll kind of test their knowledge beforehand and be like, who is this? Because that's the target sentence. That's kind of brings it into it before I even jump into the warm-up. That way when they go through, although they may not get every single word, they are relating the picture of the finger family with the sentences they're saying.
When I had the child parrot back and forth, and then I asked him. So first parroting, this is my mom. This is my mom. Good job. Who is this? As you circle or hold it up. And then hopefully now they can say, this is my mom, because they know that's what the sentence is.
What I usually do with these slides here, because since it is lesson 3, I like to see, okay, what did the student learn in the previous lessons that have already reviewed this vocabulary? So I often will just jump in right with the question here. So who is this? And I usually circle the mom on the screen. And now if they're really confused and they don't answer me, then I help them. I say, okay, this is my mom, and I do what Mary was saying about having them just parrot and repeat and then go back to the question. I also like to incorporate a puppet in those cases. I'm really big on puppets. I love them just because I find they're great for demonstrating dialogue. Like, who is this? This is my mom. Who is this? And then have the student try and answer the question too if they're a little bit confused, just to help them review those vocabulary words.
I like to kind of start off because, especially if I haven't had the student, if I have the student and I know they know the sentence, I'll jump right into kind of who is this and circle, lots of TPR, and I often alternate like you're talking for mom and dad. If it's a student I haven't had, I kind of, even if the student may be able to answer it, I like to follow that I do, we do, you do modeling. And at this level, 9 times out of 10 kids love when I do silly voices. So I kind of jump right into it just by reviewing the vocabulary and going, Mom, Mom, having them like hold their nose, Mom. And then I'll ask the question before I kind of model the sentence. And then if they don't do it, I'll go back and kind of repeat and have them go through the sentence and the conversation. And I'll use my little like teddy bear for a conversation. I don't have a puppet, but this is my teddy bear of like 20 years. That is now my #1 prop.
Then usually I would have them introduce their parent too, like, who is
idea.
this? And let them tell me, this is my mom, so they can practice it with their actual parent. Parents really like being a part of it, and it just makes them want to keep using it because it makes them feel special too, like acknowledging them. And usually in feedback, I'll mention to the parent, thank you for helping your child, and really give them specifics about what were the best ways that they helped their child, so that hopefully they'll keep doing those positive things next time.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
I even have like kind of a spin-off off of that because I have done that before and then have parents pick up the iPad or kids pick up the iPad and like run 4 rooms over to be like, Mom, 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 or Dad, Dad, Dad. And I'm like, oh, good job. But I've just found to kind of go with it. I know it's some teachers I've talked to, or even friends of mine, when students move the iPad, they're like, oh, let's sit down. I just kind of play into it. Some of my regulars who I have 2-3 times a week are constantly like laying down, upside down. And as long as they're kind of engaging, they're still involved in the activities, they're answering the questions, I think it's just a really great way, because I know that 25 minutes is a really long time to just being seated for a child sometimes. And they just need to like get up and move. And as long as they're engaging, I think incorporating their mom or their dad's a really great way to do that.
Okay, so the next slide is the target sentence. This is my family. Any thoughts, suggestions, tips?
Clapping the syllables is like really big on this one. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's super important. And I again, kind of repetition, because students do struggle with the pronunciation, and then that just repetition, that modeling, I do, we do, you do, just constantly, I think has always been really successful for me, and something that could be really monotonous, you can have a lot of fun with by changing your voice, like I mentioned earlier.
I think singing along with it can be helpful too. Sometimes if you put a sentence into a song, it helps a little. This is my family. This is my family. And sing it a couple times with them, and they kind of like that too. Just having fun and being silly.
Yeah, the same basically. I mean, this is one of the harder ones I find for my students because they do struggle with that pronunciation of family. So just lots of repetition. I'm the same as Catherine. I tend to vary my voice. I also tend to sing. I like putting everything into a sing-song kind of voice. So I do that a lot in all of my lessons. But it does make it a little bit easier for the student, a little bit more engaging and fun, and just, yeah, lots of repetition.
Yeah.
Almost every time I teach it, depending on the student, I think, because it really does depend on the level. This slide comes up a ton in trial classes, I think in the level 4 trial class, as well as this lesson. So it's a very common slide, and I'll really base it off the student's knowledge. So if they know the letters, I would kind of break it down and ask, like, what letter is this? And then if I know they have the ability to use that target sentence, I'll have them repeat, this is letter C. But if they're still kind of struggling, just having to say the actual letter, I think is fine as well. And then I model the kind of the k, 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 lots of TPR repetition. C makes the sound k, k, k. And just again, a lot of repetition, kind of going through that, using TPR, getting them quiet, loud, getting kind of silly with it as well. And I just kind of go through and repeat.
I'll usually, like, I have my letters here and I always will hold them up and I'll ask the same, what is this, to see if they can remember the letter. Sometimes they give me the sound instead of the letter name. And so I just, okay, great. And then go back, like backtrack a little bit, teach them the letter name, and then go back through the sound. If I see they're a little bit more advanced, then yeah, I will get into the structures, the same as Catherine was saying, like C makes the sound k, k, k. If not, just stick it to the letter name, the sound, and then I usually introduce the words. So I'll usually circle them. And again, if they're able, I'll have them say it on their own, try to get them to say those words on their own or spell it out on my whiteboard and have them repeat it, just depending on what they need and kind of where they're at.
Usually we'll circle the letter that we're on, and sometimes I'll erase after each one, because when you have a young child that gets confused easily, it just is easier if they're really focused on exactly what you're talking about on the slide. And I had that with this last student too, where he would say the sound rather than the letter when I say, what letter is it? So then I have to go in and do the parroting, letter C. And then I try to get them to do the actions with me and get them to do them with you so that it helps them remember. Especially, you have to switch it up depending on the child that's in front of you. If you have a child that you know you can do extension with, then using a card where you can teach them another C word, then that's great. But if you have a child that's confused, it'd probably be better to do more of the just drawing it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I know I had mentioned earlier, because I'm constantly on the go, I really do rely mostly on TPR. So for me, letters are great. And I found especially younger students at this level, like I've had students of all ages at this level, younger students are really tactile and they love kind of moving their hands around. So even just doing H, and I often even use the ASL alphabet only for the alphabet, not necessarily when I'm teaching, I use different TPR, but using the ASL alphabet, I'll start singing the ABCs, and then the kid halfway through will like stop singing and like try and concentrate on my hand movements. So I do try and use that strictly when I'm teaching individual letters instead of just an everyday speech, because it does end up kind of distracting the child sometimes instead of just focusing on this one letter. And I also have flashcards that I could use numbers and letters. I do find that I end up taking too much time, and I think different students respond to different things better, kind of like what Mary was saying, that some students need that kind of physical thing and others want that flashcard visual.
I draw lines usually. I do the first one and then try to get them to draw the line after so that they're using their fingers to draw it too. But again, going through the words. Sometimes we'll do the sing-songy thing, hot, caught, pot, whatever the words are. Just a lot of repetition and try to make it really fun.
This one's always a fun one because I will say most of my students, because I think this is the third slide in this like unit, they are able to actually put these words together. It is the ot sound, so it's ot, ot, and then they can kind of blend it on their own. And I often, when I come to this slide, all students go hot dot cut, really quickly try and read through them, and I'm like, oh, great, good job. But when a student does that, I think it's really important to kind of go back and go over and really work on pronunciation and slowing down and following directions, because it's not only teaching the phonics, it's kind of teaching to listen to the teacher. And so I'll circle the sound, I'll do repetition, or even break apart the hot, hot. And I kind of like bring the two sounds together with my hands again. Big TPR teacher. I know that a student will get through a level really quickly. What I'll often do is skip to the last slide, is often a blank slide. I just jump to it on the PowerPoint, and I'll actually just write out the word and be like, let's read, and have the student sound it out if I know that they're familiar with the material and could get through it pretty quickly. Tricky sometimes because you want to get kind of a dialogue going. And again, if it's a student that I'm familiar with, we can kind of get the dialogue going quickly. And I'll just be like, I'll circle Anna and be like, teacher, teacher, Catty. And then I'll read it. And then I'll circle Dino and I'll say the student's name, say it's Coco, 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 let's read. Because they are familiar with hello, my name is. They can read that, most of the time can read that sentence on their own. If it's a student that's really struggling, it's just a parroting slide basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Kim?
Yeah, I've done this one different ways, because I have done it where I circle it and kind of assign a role, basically, the same way as what Catherine was saying. I also, like I mentioned earlier, like I use puppets all the time. So that's another thing that I've done. If they struggle a little bit more, then I'll just do one. I'll just jump in with saying one. I'll have my puppet say the other one, and I'll either have them repeat me or the puppet, just depending. So that's how I do the parroting as well.
First, I do a few repetitions of like, sister, sister, sister. And again, if it's a more advanced student, I would even kind of relate it to the student's life, especially if I know they have a sister. I'll be like, where is your sister? What is your sister's name? And that's for a more advanced, like regular student. A regular student would be more parroting.
Yeah, okay.
Do the clapping, sister, sister, with a little sing-songy. I tend to do a lot of that with my younger kids, and they love it. And with the student I had for that last class, I was having a hard time getting him to understand when I was asking him whether he had a brother or a sister. So I pulled up a Google picture of siblings. I just said, Google, show me siblings, and then showed him a picture. I didn't have him say siblings, but then I could show brother, sister with some more pictures, and that seemed to help him. Finally, he was able to tell me he had a brother. So sometimes that can be helpful, but that wasn't the target of that slide, but we were kind of headed in that direction.
I was just like, I kind of bounced off of that and actually pulled up a picture of my siblings and I, because we all look almost identical. So I'll be like, this is my sister. And I'll show a picture and they're like, oh, teacher, sister. And they'll get really excited. I know sometimes my students get excited when you relate your personal life to the lessons, and they want to share more about their personal life as well, even at these lower levels, because you do get students, they understand what you're trying to say if you can communicate it with, like you had said, pictures, a TPR. I think it's definitely successful.
I also tend to focus on the structures here, because I find a lot of my students skip words. So especially if they struggle with these structures, they'll skip is or my. So for that, I often use like some kind of a technique that allows them to visually see the sentence. This is my sister. And then I count it again as they say it, so that they make sure they have the same number. So that's just another thing I do add if they need the extra practice.
It's tricky because people this is the first time a lot of the students are seeing people for the first time, and it may not automatically click. So this sentence is really just kind of repeating the new vocabulary, using those silly voices, people, and then modeling the sentence and having them repeat it. It really is difficult to go beyond that, other than maybe looking at the color. What colors are the people? Or who is this? Then circling the members in the family, just to kind of check on what we've learned earlier on in the lesson, especially if you need to expand it or extend the lesson.
With a bunch of different people. Many people. Yeah, just a lot of repetition, but it's fun to just hold up those things. Oh, I love these puppets.
I mean, sometimes to help them out if they're kind of struggling with the sentence, I will add the visual by circling each of the members in the family and just basically have them name them as it, and I take that as reading the sentence. And I just have them repeat the in-between words if we need to. But yeah, more than that, I really don't do because that alone takes enough time.
You can go two different ways, definitely. You have the students that are familiar with it and you can just kind of roll right through it really quickly. I can ask the question and they answer it. And then you have the students that are just kind of parroting back and forth. And you really just kind of have to adapt as the teacher and be kind of flexible in the sense that at this point, you're more than halfway through the lesson, you understand what the student's able to do, and you definitely, depending on how far into it or how much time you have left, you need to kind of move it along. So it can just be a parroting slide, or it can be a really great opportunity, especially if it's a repeat student who I've had a while, but they were a beginner. This is a really great slide, I think, to actually start really separating out that question and answer when the student or when the teacher talks and when the student responds. I love using these slides as kind of the starter pack to differentiating that, because this is kind of a big, I don't know the word, but it's a level where students grow a lot, like it in here.
I've come across with this slide sometimes, like I mean the same. I have students, most of my students actually, when I get to this slide, I ask them the question, they're really quick, yes I do. And so it's like, okay, good job. And sometimes I even have students answer the question about them, like they don't even follow the structure on the slide. I'll just say, do you have a sister, reading the dialogue there, and they'll just give me an answer for them. So sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to get them to review that structure with yes. So again, it's just being a little bit flexible. I try to find like maybe something like if I know they have a brother, then I know that they'll say yes I do for the next slide, so they are reviewing both the yes and the no structures. Otherwise I use my pictures like of the family or whatever, again, just to point out to them, okay, brother, sister, do you, and focus more on the slide there, because just to make sure they are reviewing the structures with the negative and the affirmative forms.
Say is the students that do have a younger brother or sister, I've had several of them that were just really proud to show me their brother or sister and bring them on camera, and it's so cute. And usually they'll say something too. That I even had the one boy take his headset off and put it on his little brother. It's such a great like real life learning experience for them. Yeah. You know, put the sentence with the real person, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
This one I think is really important to spend time on. I think preparing for the lessons, just kind of knowing the order. Once you've been doing them for a while, you get used to them, so you don't have to spend as much time reviewing. But knowing that there's something this important kind of towards the end, you want to make sure that you have time to spend on it. So I think kind of budgeting your time and knowing the student and is really important in this lesson. But I think a great way to teach it is again, lots of TPR, circling, and I'll have the student count, say one sister, good job. And then what Kimberly had said earlier, this is my sister. So I've shown all four. And then I would do the same for these are my brothers, two brothers. Circle the S in brothers as well to highlight it.
I think that's really good tips. Sometimes it's hard to get them to understand the difference, but it's just a repetition thing, having them say it several times. The child I had on this last one, he was really struggling with it. So I did an X through the one that was wrong and circled the one that was right so that he could clearly see which one was correct, and then went back through and re-explained, this is for 1, these are for 2, 3, 4. But sometimes it just takes them a while of saying it repetitively before they get it. But it does help to actually draw on the screen and show them. It's okay. That's what I tell teachers as we're training them. It's okay to just do it for the child if they're not getting it, and because they're still learning it. And then next time they'll be able to do it.
I like to highlight the S at the end of brothers as well, and then I actually link a line. I'll circle S and like brothers, and then I'll draw a line and circle these R. So I'm connecting that S at the end of brothers and these are, and it's a lot of repetition between this is and these are. I think the biggest issue is students often say like they are or this are instead of these, I think is the biggest sort of like confusion in that. Sorry, I was going to say I would even take like pencils, because pencils are something that someone might say this is a pencil. These are pencils, and kind of draw it out, just giving another example, another visual.
Yeah, so lots of like repetition again. I'll circle it on the screen. This one, no, with sight words, I almost never use my whiteboard. I focus more on just the word, recognizing the word, and pronouncing the word correctly. So I'll do a lot of sing-song voices or and movements, just different things. If like I have extra time, then I'll say, okay, how do you spell can? And there, if they get a little bit confused, because sometimes they don't understand the question, okay, yeah, then so I'll use a whiteboard and put the lines, the 3 lines, and have my marker ready and have them kind of tell me what the letters are. Or I'll circle the letters on the screen and get them to say them too. So that's usually how I deal with this.
Sight word slides, they're like some of my favorite in these lower levels. I love them because I like using silly voices, lots of TPR. I'll be like, C-A-N, can. And I'll go slow and fast. And I'll have the students sit up, stand down, be like, can, I can stand. Sometimes kind of extend it with that and just getting them really hyped up. I love sight word slides. And as you kind of progress, you start doing multiple sight words together, having them read it slowly and then faster. And like Kimberly was saying, like quietly. Whenever they hold their nose, they always think it's hysterical. So I'll be like, C-A-N, can.
Have a student who's really whizzing through everything because they're super advanced, then I would do that, putting them into a sentence and have them put it into a sentence for me. But for a student at this level, they're probably not going to be able to do that. So this student, in particular, this last one I did, I can see you. And then because, we had that coming up next. So kind of leading into the next slide.
Like I go through the sentences on the screen, but I'll do a lot of extension here, especially if the student gets it and we have the time, and I'll say, oh, what can you see? And I'll have them say, like, I can see an elephant, I can see a ball, I can see a cow, just whatever props I decide to pull out that day. And so that's how I extend on this slide here with the sentences.
No, I think it's a great slide to extend. There's another one that's very similar in one of the trial slides, Level 2 Unit 4 trial slide, and I just will circle things, even like colors. What color can you see? Because there's so many like colorful books in the background. I'll like color those, or not color those, circle those.
It's a great way for them to be successful, because they know the sentence structure and you're just putting one new item into the sentence. So they're being really successful over and over using the sentence. So it makes them feel really good. The question, do you have a brother? And see if they remember. If I had a brother puppet, I'd hold it up, but I don't have one. So I usually use Mike and Meg just to point out that it's a boy or a girl.
I find here, like, again, it goes 2 ways. The students who understand the lesson, who find it easy by this point, I can basically just ask them the questions and they will answer kind of just as a recap and a review. And if I have had students who have struggled quite a bit with the structures at this point, so then again, I'll kind of jump back to modeling a little bit. And I have shown like pictures of my family. This is where I tend to bring in my family. And I say, okay, I have 2 brothers, because I have 2 brothers. And then, so kind of as to help them know that they have to answer the question. And then just a lot of TPR. Do you have a brother? And try and get them to answer that question that way. That's kind of how I support them.
Falling out of your chair in this song always gets a laugh, like always.
I love it. Be silly. That's the whole.
Yeah,
that's the thing that really helps
point.
with these guys. Yeah.
The more embarrassed you'd be, like in a bookstore, the better.
That's a good way to think about it. That's a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I taught pre-K, so not much embarrasses me anymore.
No shame. It's fine.
Applicants, I think the biggest thing, the most important thing is not to try and memorize like, oh, there's one way to do a slide correctly, but to remember that it's flexible. You need to be yourself. You need to adapt to the student, read the student, and really just kind of get into that teaching moment and build that teacher-student relationship. Like that's going to be the most important. Get them speaking, make sure they're speaking correctly, and the rest kind of falls into place, and just do it while you're having fun. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of bounce off what Kimberly is saying about just being flexible, being yourself. That's super important. I think we kind of talked today about some of us are big prop teachers, some of us are big TPR teachers. You should teach in your comfort zone, do what you're comfortable with and how you can be a successful teacher. Don't worry so much how other people are doing, as long as you feel like you're utilizing different tools and being successful in your classroom. I think that's the most important part.
is, especially for new teachers, is be sure you're getting a lot of language out of the child, whether it's through parroting or answering questions. I think sometimes with new teachers, there's more of the teacher talk than the child talking, and that's so important. And the parents are listening for it too. So the more getting the student to speak, the better.
Thank you, Teacher Mary, Teacher Catherine, and Teacher Kim. Everyone watching, we hope you found it helpful and enjoyable. We'll see you next time on Oh Snap.